direct variation. So y varies directly as x. So you're going to see this in a problem. Um, Notice it says the word directly, so it's direct variation. Another thing you might see is proportional. We're going to talk about that in a second once we get more into this stuff. The next video that you're going to see, not today's, is inverse variation, and it would say y varies inversely. And again, we'll talk about that when we get there, but you always want to look for directly. So y varies directly as x, and that just means as x increases, y increases by the same factor. Y and x always have the same ratio. So remember, a ratio is just something over something else. Let me find the screen that I need. All right, so we're going to talk about time. So if we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then distance 0, 60, 120, 180, 240. So this is talking about a train, and it says that the train goes at the same rate for 4 hours, and it says that it goes 240 miles in 4 hours, going at a constant speed of 60 miles per hour. So if you look, every hour it increases by 60 miles traveled. Remember, 60 miles per hour means in 1 hour you'll travel 60 miles. After 2 hours you'll travel 120, or 60 plus 60 is 120. So this is an example of direct variation. Notice we said it's the same ratio. So if you take 60 and divide by 1, so 60 divided by 1 equals 60. 120 divided by 2 is 60. 180 divided by 3 equals 60. So every hour their rate, or if you look at any distance and time together, you will see that if you divide them, they're 60. So remember, ratio means divide. Direct variation, divide. So that's the way I remember it. Direct means you divide. So you divide the distance by the time, or y divided by x, and has to give you the same amount each time. And so we call this the constant of variation. So when you divide this, y 120 divided by 2, so y divided by x, you get the constant of variation. And the letter that you're going to see the whole unit is k. So anytime you see a k, that's talking about the constant of variation. Depending on the textbook you use, sometimes it uses a different letter. So just know either k or the constant of variation. So let's write the constant of variation. Oops, I'll move that up. Constant of variation is when you divide y by x. So y over x will give you the constant. This is also known as what I was telling you, y is proportional. Oops, if I could spell, oh, I can. Proportional to x. Okay. Another thing about direct variation, and I would just go up and write it somewhere where you have room, it must always, so if we were to graph this, I'll I'll just graph it down here actually. If we were to graph that train problem, let's go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to move that line up just a little bit because that's going to mess with this. So we'll go 0, 60, 120, 180, 240. So 0, 0, 1, 60, 2, 120, 3, 180, 4, 120. So if you notice, it looks like that. It's linear, so it makes a straight line. So direct variation must always go through the origin. So it always has to have the point 0, 0. And then after that you can take 180 and divide by 3, 240 divide by 4, and it will give you the same thing. Okay? The types of problems you're going to typically see is it will say something like y varies directly with x, and then it's going to say give you two values. So x equals 6 and y equals 102. On this problem, we're going to find the constant. Of variation and give the equation. Okay, so find the constant of variation and give the equation. So back over here, we said the constant of variation comes from dividing y by x, and you'll get your constant. So you're going to take 102 and divide by 6. So 102 divided by 6 is 17. So that's my constant, or my k. And then it says, and give the equation. Well, remember when we talk about equations, they're always written as y equals. So y equals. Now, if we find the k by y divided by x equals k, if I want to get y by itself, so if I want y by itself, if it's y divided by x, the inverse of divide, or the opposite, is to multiply by x, so that those cancel, and multiply by x. So in this equation, we're going to plug in what we know. So we're going to do y divided by x equals 17. And then we're going to multiply by x just like we did, and multiply by x. Now, if you can just memorize the two separate equations where you have y divided by x equals k and y equals kx, if you can memorize that, you're going to you will do great in this unit. So y equals 17x is your final equation, just because that is your constant. Now, I'm going to type in that equation and show you something. So y equals 17x, and I'm going to graph it. Notice that one goes through the origin, so it is direct variation. I'm going to hit second table and show you that 6 and 102 are right there. Now, if I were to take 85 and divide by 5, it should give you 17. So 85 divided by 5, yes, that's 17. And that's what you want for when, or when you're talking about y varies directly with x. Okay, so that's the two things that it just said. So those were our two separate answers. Now the next thing that you're going to typically see when you're doing these direct variation is they're going to say find y when x equals 10. So for this same exact problem, it's asking to find y when x equals 10. So we already have the constant of variation, and now it's telling us to use 10. Now I just showed you the table, so you could just go down to in the table until you find 170, or sorry, until you go to x equals 10 and it's 170, or just plug this into that equation. So y equals 17 times 10. Well, 17 times 10 is 170, so y equals 170. Okay, those are the easy ones. Now we're going to step it up just a little bit, and we're going to say find x when y equals 524. So if I keep going and I want to find when y equals 524, it's somewhere between 30 and 31, but I need to know the exact. So what you're going to do is, again, plug this into the equation. So 524 equals 17x. Now we're looking for x this time, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of solving. So it's 17 times x. So I'm going to divide by 17 and divide by 17. So 524 divided by 17 is 30.82352941. On your assignment, it tells you to round to the hundredths place. So if you get any of them that are like this, you're going to round to the hundredths place. So remember, hundredths place means there's two decimals. So you want two decimals and look at the third. So the 3 makes the 2 stay the same. So it would be 30.82 equals x. And remember, whenever we looked at the table, it was between 30 and 31. So this is between 30 and 31, so that's what I want. Okay, so that's direct variation. Again, this is typically how you're going to see it. I think some of the problems just ask for the constant. Some ask for the equation. So the equation is always y equals. Sometimes it's going to ask find y when x equals 10, and then find x when y equals something else. Remember, when you're doing the assignment, for it to be direct variation, the table has to be this divided by this. So 60 divided by 1 gives you the same thing as 180 divided by 3.